Joe, thanks so much for having me on Freewheeling last week, and
Oh, sure.
pleasure to return the favor. What I wanted to ask you about is, as a musician, 2020 was a different year than any other, and I wanted to see if you could speak to how it was different and how you went to adapt to everything that happened last year.
Uh, yeah, I don't even know where to begin. It was like everything. Well, first off, I'm very much an introvert. So as far as like sort of the whole emotional aspect of it, I was totally fine with it. Some people in my family aren't quite as fine with it. So kind of being like the dad and the husband, that took a toll a little bit on me. But I have found that this past year, I have been busier than I ever have been. Like crazy. Maybe it was just a way that I was sort of dealing with it myself. Just if I'm doing something and producing something and each day something is done, it kind of gets me through each day. I don't know. But I've been busier than I ever have been.
It's awesome. That's
I know you've done a lot of those like virtual concerts and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Because what I like about that is that you do a virtual concert and now it's not something that 100 people or 700 people or 4 people can enjoy at that time. It now kind of lives forever.
Right.
So people can enjoy it millions of times. People can re-enjoy it. And I think that's a really neat thing.
So you're seeing the glass is half full. And I feel the same way. One thing that I'm hoping, we put our heads together, we can get some insight into is that 2020 was different for everybody, but yet you were able to approach it from a perspective. You can say that you're an introvert, but you were able to approach it from a perspective of saying, okay, things are different, but I'm still going to play music and I'm going to focus on everything positive I can do. There's definitely people that, I think their way of adapting to the change was, okay, let's wait. And at this point, I understand where they're going crazy. Could you talk about some of the things that you did before the pandemic and how you do them now and how you maintain a positive attitude about it?
Okay. Again, like there's so many things. You mentioned the glass half full, half empty kind of thing. And, that's sort of like a great way to compartmentalize people. It makes it very black and white, which I don't think is fair. But nonetheless, if we're to say that's the two ways you can look at things, I remember driving to school one day. I was probably, 20 or something, and in traffic, and I had so much stress and I had such a headache and it was unbearable. And there was just like parking lot traffic and somebody was walking around handing out daffodils, like on Route 128. It was just stopped and they gave me one and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I have this unbelievable headache and all this stress. I'm gritting my teeth. You know what? I don't want to live this way. And that was the moment when I just said, you know what? I want to look at the bright side of things. I don't want to think like I'm going to be late for class. I just want to think, you know what? If I'm late for class, oh well, next time I'm going to leave earlier. And then get on with my day. And that really changed everything to make me have a more positive outlook. It's a choice.
That's huge. I believe that, the types of energy that you put out is generally speaking, the majority of what's returned to you. So, that's a positive attitude. I think you're happier. Obviously, I want
Yeah.
to, happiness to a large degree is in our control. Tell me, Joe, about some specific things, Joe. So
Yes. Yeah.
I saw you. I saw a video of you playing, and it was socially distanced, and you were playing lead guitar behind a singer. Might have been playing a Grateful Dead song.
Yes.
Tell me about that type of thing, where you do get together with
Sure.
people,
Right.
but the social distancing works. How does that go?
Yes. So to actually answer your original question, before the whole pandemic, you go to rehearsal, and although it's fun and everything, it's always kind of like 3 hours of one person in the band learning the songs as we're rehearsing them and things like that. So right, yeah, it's like so with the whole pandemic thing, I think it's made me more in charge of what I'm doing. So like the thing with my friend Kevin, he was playing guitar and singing.
Yeah.
I have this problem. Have you ever seen the movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey?
I don't think wait. I know Liar Liar, but that's not the one you're talking about.
No.
I don't know.
It's a thing where he goes to a self-help thing, like seminar, and the deal is he has to say yes to everything.
Okay.
That's kind of what I do. Like if somebody says, "Hey, Joe, do you want to do this thing, and I'm going to play some Grateful Dead tunes and you'll play in the background," and my stock answer is yeah. So that's how I get into something like that. Mm-hmm. But I think with the pandemic, now I think I'm becoming more choosy, not so much with like the great musical choices. I still say yes to like everything, but I can say yes, and now I don't have to go to 7 rehearsals for 3 songs. It's like, you know what? Let's get together one afternoon. We're going to play through the 3 songs, socially distanced, of course, and everyone needs to be ready. And if you're not, we're dumping a song.
Right.
We're not going to get together 4 more times.
That's what you're saying is a great point. And, I'll admit it. I mean, I don't know if people recognize this about me, but, if you take the time to make sure you know the material before you get together with somebody, that's how you show people respect.
Right.
I think. So when I'm in a situation where I've taken the time to learn the material and somebody else hasn't, I feel disrespected when I'm in those situations. So what you just said, that's a very positive thing that you're pointing out about the pandemic and quarantine, where people recognize they do have to be a little bit more independent, so that when they show up, they have the material ready.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And also I'm focusing a lot more on YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I can do independently.
It's perfect.
I'm sorry. One of the things that that annoys me about being a musician is because especially I can't sing at all. To do anything with vocals, say, I need to rely on somebody else.
Right.
Luckily, I found somebody, Nancy.
Yeah.
But like being in a band, anything, it's not all under my control.
Right.
There's too many other people that can mess things up.
Okay.
So with the YouTube thing, I can make a video and it's only me and it's only a camera and I do whatever I feel like and it's done and my day's over. I can go to bed and I accomplish something.
Absolutely. I mean, with the videos too, you can, like what we're doing right here. This is
right.
a collaboration, but it is really different. I love the attitude that you have about it, Joe. That's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about teaching lessons and how you're still doing some of your lessons remotely. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about how that affects your teaching style and the way that you use time in a lesson.
I find it difficult. I really do. I really, really miss the in-person teaching. I hope Nick isn't going to watch this, because if I had my way, I would just teach remotely completely. I'm terrified. People are like, you can't live in fear. And I'm like, watch me, because I can live in fear. I am doing it.
So, yeah, I'm feeling you. So you said two separate things. This is nuanced, what you're talking about. Because on one hand, you're just like, you miss teaching in person, but you'd like to teach all. I'm teaching only remotely, and then for that reason, it makes me really focused on trying to find. We talked about like the Rock Out Loud thing and everything, trying to find ways to improve that experience. Because I'm not teaching in person at all, can you tell me about? I think I saw a picture at Band Gig where there was like a transparent plastic shield and everything.
Yes.
Can you tell me about some of the steps that you're taking when you are in person?
Sure. Like I said, I'm terrified, as well as being slightly crazy.
Me too.
So I'm in a room and I'm double masked. And of course, the students masked. And of course, they're 6 feet or more away from me. And if I really need to touch something, like to tune a guitar, I have hand sanitizer right there. I'm like, I have a window open with a fan going. And I've had students that are like, it's really cold in here. And I'm like, I know, I apologize, but I need to. We have to have ventilation, blah, blah, blah. And so that's kind of how I'm doing it. And unfortunately, I have some somewhat significant hearing issues. It's genetic. It's not loud music. I take care of my hearing.
But that's harder when you're 6 feet away from somebody.
And a mask on.
Yeah.
Because people don't realize, I never realized until somebody pointed it out, I'm lip reading half the time.
Right. I mean, I would say my take on that is everybody's just got to speak up, talk like this when you're wearing a mask. That's what I do. Sometimes people in public act like I'm insane, but at least they can hear what I'm saying. What you said about being scared, though, I'd like to make an analogy about that, because I have a particular view on it, which is that, okay, there's a couple things that are dangerous if you're drunk. One of them would be going swimming, and another one would be driving. The big difference is if you go swimming when you're drunk, maybe there's some outside chance somebody's going to try to save you and they're going to get hurt. But generally, you're really only endangering yourself.
Right.
I am much more comfortable with things that endanger me versus things that I could do that would endanger other people. I'm really uncomfortable with that. And my whole take on the whole pandemic is, it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about everybody. It does seem like some people, they revert to this thing about the pandemic. Well, I'm going to take my chances, and they're not really seeing the science part. But I love that what you're telling me is that there are challenges to teaching in person. Maybe the open window, maybe you're further away, but you're still doing the right thing. Although in that way, that's an advantage to teaching remotely, because you don't have to wear a mask when you do that, and you can do the lip reading like you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think maybe the hardest thing is, especially with remote, is keeping students interested. Because I have a lot of young students, and when I'm doing like a virtual lesson, I always see this.
Oh, that's
and it's like, what are you looking at? Stop looking at stuff. Like,
Right.
So it's really hard not in person to keep a younger kid interested. And I think that's really the hardest thing.
Well, I can see that. I'd make the argument, I don't want to point out hypocrisy in young people, but before the quarantine, anytime you gave a kid something with a screen, they couldn't keep their eyes off it.
I know.
And then now that there's serious business doing schoolwork and things like that, then they act like I don't know. I'll make an observation about that, about the way that I learn and about the way that I teach is I'm always trying, whenever I have work to do, I always treat it like it's a game.
Yep.
And to me, that's a very engaging way to. So with that in mind, I'll tell you one thing I do with my students a lot is if there's, I'm going to give you an example here. So I'll teach them about the circle of fifths so that they understand, hey, if the tune is in the key, or if the first chord that you find is an A major, then, there's a pretty good chance there might be a D major chord or an E major chord or maybe a G major chord. So, but we'll actually play hangman like that, where I'll write down a chord progression and then I'll have them start guessing chords. And then once they get one chord, then they can use what they know about the circle of fifths. But the thing about that is that they won't look away from the screen, because that's one thing that kids like to do with their devices is play games. Right. Even when they was in person, I do that a lot. Like turn it into a game. But it sounds like a fantastic approach that you're taking when you are doing the in-person lessons. The hearing thing, man, that's, you know what, I got to tell you, I didn't even really think about that aspect of it and how that can be a challenge. I see people in public all the time that they're good about wearing a mask until they have to say something. And that's the worst time to take the mask off, but they do it. Joe, you were talking last week about, your vision as an electric guitarist, and you talked about like classic influences, and you might have mentioned Jimmy Page and Ritchie Blackmore. So what I'm curious more is how you arrived at sort of the self-identity as a musician, and then what you're sort of how that plays out, like where you want to go with that classic approach, and maybe define that classic approach a little bit more.
Okay, that's a great question. I'm a very traditional person, very conservative, very traditional, not necessarily in a political way.
Yeah.
I just mean traditional, like, say I'm the husband. I do the husband type stuff. Yeah. I'm in charge of kind of protecting my family because I'm the husband, caveman kind of, but I also, I'm very traditional musician, like music wise. I like what I like. I know that the first, the watershed moment was some kid gave me a copy of Led Zeppelin 2 that he listened to a bunch and I guess was bored of it, which is beyond me, but nonetheless, he gave it to me. So I brought it home and I distinctly remember the needle going down on the record, side one, you hear that sort of exhalation from Robert Plant right at the beginning of Whole Lotta Love. If you turn it up loud enough, you can hear it, and then the guitar comes in and I just literally was like, wow. Like I knew I liked music. I was into Kiss in the 70s and all that, but like, wow, okay, I need to do this, whatever this is. I don't even know what it is, but this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do this.
Right.
So then I found out, okay, so it's a guitar. Oh, okay, it's this band called Led Zeppelin. Oh, okay, this guy, Jimmy Page, plays guitar. Okay, I just knew, I want to do that. And then there were all these other smaller moments, like I was pulling into the driveway of a girlfriend's house, and the live version of Strange Kind of Woman from Made in Japan came on.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I had ever heard it. This was pre-internet, if you don't have a friend that says, hey, you got to listen to this.
Right.
You don't know it exists.
Right.
So I heard it, and all I remember is all of a sudden my girlfriend's knocking on the window of the car, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what? She's like, you've been sitting here for 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, I mean, I heard that and I was like, I'm blown away.
Yeah.
And I was already playing guitar a little bit by then.
Yeah.
So, sort of, again, I love to ramble. The sound of my own voice, it's awesome. I sort of look at it like, well, here are the reasons why I want to play guitar. So that's what I want to do. So somebody, like, I don't want to become a groundbreaking guitarist. I have no interest in that because I want to play like Jimmy Page. I want to play like Ritchie Blackmore. I want to play like Leslie West. I want to play like all these players that I loved growing up. So to come up with something new, like, why would I do that? You know, like a 7-string guitar. I have zero interest in a 7-string guitar. I know you like alternate tunings and stuff because it expands the vocabulary of the guitar and all of that great stuff. And I'm like, I don't want any of that. I just want to play, like a Strat.
Yeah.
6 strings. There we are. A Strat into a Marshall. It was good enough for so many players. It's perfectly fine for me. And I actually, oddly enough, I like the constraints of that.
Yes.
During this pandemic, I've been doing a lot of ukulele lessons for a student. What I do is I record a video. He's very young, and the parent figured he can't do a Zoom meeting. He's not going to pay any attention. Yeah. So I record a video. And then, of course, I edit the video down and throw it on YouTube because why not, right? Double dip, But I've been learning a lot of ukulele stuff and rearranging songs for ukulele, and I'm really enjoying the limits of ukulele. Like, you don't have a 4 or 5 octave range on a ukulele.
I would make the argument that you don't have either the low end, but there's a lot of things that you can do with the ukulele to increase the range. And then I would say that the vast majority of musical ideas are contained in fewer than 2 octaves. I'll tell you, I don't think of the ukulele as being a limited instrument. It's actually, there's something I'll tell you about the ukulele. It was a huge breakthrough for me. Is I
like how you pronounce it correctly.
Oh, the thumb. Mm-hmm. So if you're finger picking and you have the thumb on your G string, when you play guitar, you're able to play bass lines like that.
Right.
And when I was first playing the ukulele, I was disappointed. I was like, oh wow, my bass lines don't work. And then they did. I accepted the fact that part of the music wasn't going to be in the octave that I'm accustomed to, but that you could play a drone, you could play a middle line. But I love the ukulele. Joe, there's a bunch of things you said there that I want to maybe speak to and just go a little deeper with what you're saying. The first thing is that you said, well, I'm a conservative guy. But then you listed a bunch of players, and I'd make the argument that because you're talking about Jimmy Page and you're talking about Leslie West, well, there's a lot of ground in between them. So to me, you're blending influences. They may be influences from a certain era in time, right? Like historically, but still, there's so much room for originality there as you combine these types of influences. There was something else though when you mentioned that when we were first learning how to, I had the same thing where I had a vinyl of Led Zeppelin 4, and I just played Stairway to Heaven. I didn't play guitar yet, and I just listened to it over and over. And I'm like, I have to play guitar. But here's my question for you. If we go back, say, to the beginning of the 20th century, if someone was going to become a musician, probably the way that they would find out about a lot of new music would be published sheet music. So then they look at our generation and say, oh, these kids don't get to experience what we did. They're just, listening to songs on the radio. On the other hand, we'd hear complete albums. That was sort of the nature of the way that we consume music. That's not the case anymore. Here's what I want to ask you, Joe. How does it affect the future of music, knowing that young musicians today, the way that they're exposed to music is pretty radically differently, is radically different than the way that we were? What would you say about that?
It totally is. And if you kind of think about it, it's almost going back to the beginnings of rock and roll, where it was a real singles based
Yes.
kind of thing. Like, I don't know, say the Beatles would release a single, so there'd be an A and a B side, and then release a single, an A and a B side, and then release a single, an A and a B side. And then they'd go, okay, we now have 6 songs. We'll throw on 3 covers and whatever, and we have an album. So they'd go into the studio in an afternoon, hastily record a few cover tunes, and it's now an LP album.
Right.
It was very singles driven. And I think that's what a lot of it is now.
You're right. So it's full circle in that way.
In that way. In another way, it's completely light years ahead, because I'm sure you have the same thing. I have students that say, oh, I want to learn blah, blah, blah song by blah, blah, blah performer. And I go, I've never heard of that. So I do on YouTube, and it pops up, and it's like this band with, I don't know, 10,000 subscribers, and the video for the song that my student wants to learn has, I don't know, 30,000 views or something. And it's like, really? I have videos with more views than this. Right. Like, how are you hearing about, learning about? It's all there. It's unbelievable. Like, I mean, they talk about the YouTube, like, going down the rabbit hole. Yeah, it has on the side the list of suggestions,
right.
And you just start clicking on stuff, right. And you're just hearing stuff that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you never would have heard.
Right. Right. Which that can be a good thing. I think, in a way, we're talking about the difference between push marketing and niche marketing, where, say in the 1970s, an album like Frampton Comes Alive, mm-hmm. literally everybody heard that album.
Yeah.
And yet, if somebody was in a position where they had a much smaller audience, they wouldn't have a record available because of that, right? Versus now, you're absolutely right. It's, all different stages of the development of artists. If somebody's interested in something that relates to an artist that's maybe we'd say obscure, they have a chance. It's an even platform now for them. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big, to me, the big thing about the past and the future is I feel like the future has gravity. It has gravity on its side. So there's a lot of things that I love about the 20th century, right? Mm-hmm. But I feel like I don't want to get too attached to them, because I see people trying to hold on to the way things were, and it feels like a losing bet. They're fighting against the tides of time, as it were. Mm-hmm. But that's a great point about the singles market. Joe, tell me, after everything that you've learned from 2020, tell me your plans now for 2021.
To be more Joe-centric.
Okay.
I only want to do stuff that I want to do. Life is short.
Yes.
Life is short. Life can be terrifying,
yes.
And it kind of made me reorganize my priorities.
Okay.
And one of my priorities is, you know what? I don't want to do some random local band and play some random local bars for not nearly enough money, just because, I'm a musician and blah, blah, blah. You know what? I can write a song. I can record it at my house. I can make just a lyric video. It doesn't even have to be any scenes and shots and editing, just the lyrics scrolling across the screen, and put it on YouTube, and I've accomplished something.
Right.
That was me.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. The thing about playing, like freelancing, is it does feel like it develops a particular skill set. And, maybe in our teens and 20s, it was really critical for us to develop that skill set. But I think we've developed it now. Like, Joe, if you didn't know how to ride a bicycle, I'm like, hey, Joe, let's try riding bicycles. Like, I can really develop something. But once you know how to ride a bicycle really well, then what you said about being more Joe centric and thinking about what you want to put your time. Basically, here's the thing to think about is there are skills that you've already developed that you don't necessarily to do a lot. You don't need to do a lot to maintain them.
Right.
And yet, especially the pre-pandemic world, there was no shortage of opportunities for us to regurgitate what we knew about, it could be, hey, I'm going to learn 30 cover songs and go play them. And we did that. We did that a few times. The other thing that I really like about when you're talking about making the videos that we talked a little bit about last week was this idea that, before us, there was a whole bunch of guitarists that learned songs to play them in bars. So if we do that, no matter how much work we put into that, we're not really making a dent in history by doing just that. So when you say being Joe-centric, that gives you the opportunity to focus, maybe more on things that people have not done. And I think those will wind up being the things that we're remembered for. That's my instinct on it. So and you're right, we're getting older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, like you just said, I know why, as I explained, I know why I wanted to play guitar, but at some point I discovered Rush.
Yes, yes.
And I remember, how when you're younger and you just, like you said, Stairway to Heaven over and over, there'd be like certain albums, like for 2 weeks, all I would listen to was like Signals by Rush. And then like for 2 weeks, it would be something else. I remember listening to like Signals and things like that. And the lyrics really kind of spoke to me as, a weird loser in high school kind of a thing. And I'm like, this music is really speaking to me.
Yes.
I could do something with my music instead of just playing some cool riffs, whole lot of love, and just play it like, yeah, that's cool, I'm loud. I could actually do something and maybe like communicate to another person sitting there with headphones on like I'm doing.
Yes.
The dudes from Rush have no idea who I am. But, when Neil died, because I'm on a first name basis with him, of course. When he died, I didn't even know I just got goosebumps now still. I didn't even know what to do because he was like one of my best friends in high school.
I understand that completely. I think it's important. It's important to recognize, Joe, that the reason that Neil did what he did is because he had an experience that was almost identical to the experience that you had. He listened to some music, and it helped him as a person.
Yeah.
And there's so many ways, there's a myriad of approaches for music to help a person. I think one of the ones that to me is most common is music can lend solace to loneliness, So he had some experience like that, and that inspired him. And then he inspired you. And then you decided, okay, well, I'm going to do the same thing he did. And to me, that's a really beautiful thing about music. And I also want to say it's an extremely selfless thing. Because if what you're concerned with is sharing with others the type of experience that you had, that's not really about you at all. That's about helping other people around you. And I think there's no better reason to play music than that. So, yeah,
I guess,
awesome. Tell me, but before we wrap up, Joe, tell me, could you plug your YouTube channel, please?
Sure. Guys, go and check out my YouTube channel. Just search. I don't know what my channel thing is. I'm such an unbelievably terrible marketer.
If you do Joe Hart guitar, right? I think Joe Hart guitar, then you'll find.
I think, yeah, if you just search, right, yes, whatever you do, don't search Joe Hart football or Joe Hart soccer, because there's a dude that plays soccer, aka football, to the rest of the world, and he'll just pop up. So Joe Hart guitar, Joe Hart music, it'll pop up. I have hundreds of videos.
When I post this on my YouTube channel, I'll put a link to your channel. And yeah, you're extremely prolific. Did you decide, and this is another thing, was it this year you decided I'm going to post a new video every day? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because my YouTube channel was slowly starting to actually earn money.
Yes.
And pre-pandemic, it was something like averaging like 83 cents a day.
Yes.
So certainly nothing that like I can now retire and kick back.
Yeah.
But it got me like, hey, that's actually 83 cents a day.
Yeah.
Like, that's not so bad. Like, maybe I could get it to $1 a day. That's $30 a month.
Right.
Hey, you know? So I noticed that as I was posting more videos, it seemed like I was earning more. And then I just thought, you know what? I wonder if I could do one a day.
That's so brilliant.
And just kind of like the supermarket approach, where rather than selling like supermarket as opposed to real estate, a very successful broker might sell, I don't know, 15 or 20 houses and make hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in a year, because they're making tens or 20, 30, 40, 80,000 on one sale. A supermarket is selling things for pennies in profit, but millions of them.
Right.
Millions of cans of, tuna and whatever. So if I can post videos in just 365 videos in a year, it might be worth 3 or 4 decent money producing videos.
Absolutely. And as time goes by, that whole body of work, like you said before about like the live streaming concerts, is that when it's over, it's kind of not over. It's something that now, for as long as the internet exists and those videos are available, people can continue to enjoy them. And the other thing about the streaming concerts is that people all around the world can enjoy them, whereas people from Japan are unlikely to say, well, I'm going to fly to Boston to see this one show and fly back, versus on the internet, it makes it very easy to do that. Wow.
Right.
Joe, thank you so much again for the sort of traded interviews here.
Sure.
From, last week. We'll have to do this again. Did I hear is Hank going to be on your show next?
Who's Hank?
Arthur?
Oh, yes.
Yes, yeah. Call him Hank. Call him Hank. Tell him.
Okay.
Steve said you say. Steve says I should call you Hank. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He is. Yeah. Yeah. He did some of the guitarioke things.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, he has he's gone and taken classes from a master luthier, and I'll say, speaking for myself, there's certain things I can do to adjust the action on a guitar or fix certain issues, but I'm not a deep luthier. I see you doing a lot of that stuff as well, where so I can't wait to see the video that you two put out about that. Says I'm in awe when people can really build guitars. That blows my mind. So I can't wait to see what
I have too much time on my hands.
I love it. But
I should spend it practicing.
Well, you can only spend so many hours practicing. It's fun, especially as we get older. I think it's fun to having other ways to develop our music. And
an interesting. I don't mean to keep going, but an interesting. I know that you and I have some kind of seemingly opposite views, and one of your things is you want to just focus on music, everything music.
Yes.
And here's an interesting little story. I wrote that song that Krampus Krampus is coming.
Yep.
And I like it. It's a pretty cool tune.
Absolutely.
It was because I watched a American Dad episode about Krampus.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, Krampus. Nobody ever talks about Krampus. Okay. And then a few days later, I'm driving around with my wife. She's driving. I'm in the passenger seat. Kids are in the back seat. We're just looking at Christmas lights and stuff around the local towns and things. And I'm just sitting there like wandering off in my head like I always do while my wife's trying to talk to me about stuff. And I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I should write a song about Krampus. And all of a sudden, I had like these lines in my head of lyrics, and I had how the song goes. And I was like, okay, and I'm writing it down like in chicken scratch, trying to remember how I think the chords might go and the rhythm might go. And I got home and I quickly recorded, just so that I wouldn't forget it. And that never would have happened if I wasn't doing things that seemingly weren't music related.
I understand that 100%. I don't think we're that different. I don't think that we're that different. I may be more vocal about just trying to keep myself as focused as possible on music and art. But of course, things that are not music related happen to us. And here's how we're exactly the same. When non-musical things happen to me, I think to myself, how can I turn this around and make this about music? And you do the same thing. You do the exact same thing.
Which is why I said seemingly opposite.
Yes. we're getting to the same place, maybe taking different. You know what, though? I think it's a great thing that different people take different paths. That makes life very, very interesting. You mentioned the term like black and white before, and I'll go out and I'll say something. When I have a conviction, what I found is if I can find a sort of a black and white, it's telling me low battery. I'm going to have to, we might just get shut off. Hopefully we won't. But when I have a conviction about something, I find that if I find a black and white way to characterize it, it will, that spurs conversation. So, yeah, I think we're coming from the same place with that, Joe. Wow. Joe, listen, it's tough. I want to stop and make sure I get the recording here because it's taking a little battery. Yeah. Thank you so much, Joe.
Sure.
Let's stay in touch and let's both have a great 2021.
Yes. Awesome. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.